It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Patrick Reusse with me. I am Michael Rand. Patrick, we always talk a little bit before the show about what we're going to, obviously what we're going to get into. It's not all a surprise. We could do several shows today. There's so much going on. We got to talk Vikings. We got to talk about the AFC and NFC title games. Maybe we'll get to a little bit of other stuff at the end, but we were talking, before we started recording, talking about how the Chiefs just completely fell apart on Sunday. They're up 21-3. Cincinnati gets a late touchdown in the second half. Kansas City comes marching right back down the field. Looks like they're going to get a touchdown at the end of the half. They don't get any points at all because time runs out. And then Patrick Mahomes, what happened to him?
I don't know. It in the end, I was saying to myself, well, it supports my long held theory. We always know what's going to happen unless it doesn't, in sports. Yesterday was that game is the wonder of sport right there. The fact that we all express our hardcore opinions. I was comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tiger Woods in the first half. He's the number one man in American sports right now. And then he makes a stupid play at the goal line. Now people are giving Andy Reid credit for that, but he's got to know that unless the receiver can walk into the end zone, he's got to throw it at his feet and kick the field goal, right?
Yes.
And I don't think, they've always talked about, he seems to be a guy who can put everything behind him, but he was rattled the rest of the game. It was unbelievable how bad he was. And I refuse to believe that after having all those wide open receivers in the first half, that obviously Cincinnati figured something out at halftime, but there still had to be some receivers there. And he started running around like Ponder, as we both agreed. It was, he wouldn't throw the ball. He was afraid to fire the ball in a contested situation. It was all of a sudden, he was like the young Aaron Rodgers, not wanting to throw any interceptions. And then he started just happy feet running, as you said, happy feet running around in circles. And it was brutal. I couldn't believe it because he was great the first half.
Yeah, they scored on 3 drives in a row. It looked like it was going to be a fourth, and then I think you're right. Maybe he was just in the back of his head. He's like, "Oh, we should have had those points. This should have been it should have been a cakewalk kind of game. If maybe if they score there, because then they get the ball. I think they had the ball to start the second half too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they got the ball to start the second half, and they 3 and out, I believe.
Yes.
And then, Mike, overtime. Okay, here it is.
Right.
A week ago, you went into overtime, and you went down the field in 12 seconds against a better defense, allegedly, Buffalo. And he goes 3 and out again. He was just terrible, and I can't believe it. It's just... it's amazing that these guys are all human beings, I guess, and including him, because I couldn't believe what I was watching. And meanwhile, the other guy, Joe Burrow, suddenly he's the story going into this Super Bowl, isn't he? I mean,
yes.
Everybody's going to be talking about Matt Stafford, who tried to lose the game, by the way, hit the safety right in the chest.
Man.
That guy, Shanahan should have ran out on the field and released him. He should have said, "Your career is over, son. Get on the plane and go home." When he dropped that, because that's the ball game right there.
Yes.
But Joe Burrow this is amazing. Again, we were talking before. First season he's played, really. He got hurt right early last year. And he's something. He's a bigger, more athletic kid than we give him credit for. He's about 6'4", isn't he?
Yeah, and he made some plays with his feet too, which was I didn't really know he could do.
Those 2 or 3 runs. I mean, the one run he makes and puts the ball out in front and gets the first down. There was a scramble after that too, but that was the play of the game right there. Kept them moving, and now you can That Kansas City defense is very erratic, and they kind of when you get them running around in circles, you could do some great things against them too. And they were completely rattled by what was going on, and they were actually fortunate to still have a chance at the end of the chance to tie it up. That was another thing, Mike. They were going down. And that was the worst I'd ever heard Tony Romo on a broadcast in the last minute.
Yeah,
he said, should they let them score? Well, hell no. You can't let them they need a touchdown.
Right.
There's no evidence that they're going to score a touchdown. You don't, if they're sitting there where all they got to do is kick a field goal from 20 yards, then you let them score. You don't let them score when you're 3 ahead and they're on the 8-yard line.
Yes.
Moron. I don't know what he was like. Goofy too. It was, and finally Buck had to say, "Well, no, you don't let them score."
Nance, right?
Yeah, Nance, excuse me. Yeah, I mean they were. He was rattled. Everybody was rattled. Nobody could believe what they say, and I gotta think Kansas City this morning is like Minneapolis and St. Paul were on. January 15th, was it? 1999 would have been Monday morning. What was that game on January 14th, 1999? I think maybe it was. And whatever morning that was, I got to think Kansas City's that way today.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
I was down there once, Mike, when they lost as a number 1 seed in the first round. But that was with Elvis Gerbach as the quarterback. This is a little different.
This is a little different.
This is Patrick Mahomes. To do that to you is just an amazing loss. And now, you know what it was, though? It was a repeat of the second half of the Super Bowl last year when they were just pathetic. And that's, I don't know. I guess I got to reevaluate. I mean, I love the kid, but the idea that there's nobody anywhere near him in the league is kind of playing a second half like that in a huge game is really hard to explain, and certainly does take a little bit out of the mystique. That's for sure.
The other game, it was close. Not every close game is great. However, that was just watching the Rams and 49ers, certainly some compelling stuff there, but, San Francisco manages to take a 17-7 lead into the fourth quarter. The Rams rally, win 20-17, but, a game probably defined more by misplays than, great plays. You alluded to the safety for the 49ers just dropped a gift, long pass from Stafford that was right to him instead of any other receiver, and he drops it, and then they wind up kicking the winning field goal on that drive.
Niners win that game probably if he doesn't do that. It's Garoppolo it's amazing the number of playoff victories he had when he drives you crazy. I mean, he tried to lose a couple of them. This could have been one of the great playoff runs ever if they pulled it off, though, and got to the Super Bowl. And because who they beat in the first? Dallas, right? They beat Dallas.
Yes. Yep.
Then they beat Green Bay. Then they could have beaten. I mean, this would have been one of the great playoff runs ever. And but they, Garoppolo, he just throws the ball in the general direction way too often. So I would imagine they will move on to Trey Lance for next season and hope he can play. But there's no guarantee of that either. But the Rams, this is now their second Super Bowl since they came back to LA.
Yes.
In 2016. They have, I looked it up. I was trying to remember. They have won 3 NFL championships. 1945 in Cleveland. And then the next year they moved to LA because the Browns were in town in that All-American Football Conference. So they moved to LA in 46, became the first pro team to move to the West Coast, basically. And then they won in 51 with the Rams. Norm Van Brocklin and Bob Waterfield, two quarterbacks, alternated. They were both in the Pro Bowl.
Wow.
And then they won in St. Louis in 99. So they've won 3 Super Bowls, one in Cleveland, one in St. Louis, one in LA. and never no, they not won 3 Super Bowls. They've only won 1 Super Bowl, but as St. Louis.
3 championships,
but they've won 3 NFL championships, but in 3 different cities. We all know they were in St. Louis for 21 years, but you got to look it up and be reminded that they started off as the Cleveland Rams in 1937. So anyway, it's certainly that jackass Stan Kroenke is a hero out there now, right? With his $1 billion, $2.5 billion, $3 billion or $5 billion stadium and 2 Super Bowl appearances. This one in his own building.
Yes,
it's all set up for them, but I wouldn't trust them to beat the Bengals. And you know what else is interesting, Mike?
What's that?
Remember how upset we were that how could the Vikings possibly lose the season opener to Cincinnati?
I got a message about that from our colleague Vince Tuss, who was like, should we reevaluate that loss a little bit more?
Yes, we should. Instead, we should be saying, how did the Vikings ever come so close to them? They had a chance to win that game.
Would have won if Dalvin hadn't fumbled, probably.
Yeah, they had the worst record in the league 2 years ago. Was it?
Yeah, I think they only won 4 games last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man alive. It's listen, the NFL drives me crazy with the officiating, which, by the way, didn't impose itself in either of these games.
No, those are fine.
Usually does, and a bunch of other things. But man alive, when you look at the playoffs from the first weekend to yesterday, how amazing are the number of close games that there are. What I wonder, I kept having this thought last night, and I really don't have one. What has happened to the league? I know they do everything they can for parity and everything, but what has happened to the league that so many games, just virtually, it seems like 60% of the games you watch are not decided at the 2-minute warning. It's incredible how close the competition has gotten. It's just amazing.
I think teams can score faster now, and that's part of it. And I think part of it too is that when teams get ahead, they are even more than ever loath to make that mistake that's going to let a team get back into it even faster. But I don't know if that explains all of it, but that's kind of watching it from a distance. It just feels like that you're down 2 touchdowns with 4 minutes left. That used to be like game's over. And now it's like, they still got a chance. You got to watch till the end because the other team's going to try to run the clock and the other team's going to try to score a touchdown in 14 seconds. And that's just the way it goes.
And the other thing, Mike, is if the Rams had actually intercepted, if the 49ers had intercepted that pass, McVay had already kicked away all their timeouts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, they had.
If San Francisco could have had the ball in the lead, they were done. They were finished. But the other thing about these abilities to come back is you can't recover an onside kick anymore.
No.
But somehow if they get the ball with 24 seconds to go and need a field goal on their own 25, 2 passes, and they kick a 50-yard field goal. You think that McPherson kid is a hero in Cincinnati?
It's pretty good. 5th round kickers, baby. Got to draft a kicker in the 5th round. Right. Hang on to him.
If he'd been here and missed a couple in game 2, we would have gotten rid of him, man. It's amazing. I guess they're having a lot of fun with the idea that when he ran on the field to kick the 50-yarder last week, he said, I can't believe we're going to the AFC title game before he ever kicked the thing. So he must be a confident young lad.
Doesn't lack for confidence, no. Well,
no, but it's the Bengals. two previous Super Bowls were both against the 49ers.
Yes.
So that looked almost like that was going to happen again. But I think the first non-Viking Super Bowl I covered was the Bengals and the 49ers when Bill, that was at the very start of the 49ers dynasty.
Yes.
And they kind of came out of nowhere to go to the Super Bowl. Cincinnati was more established then than they were.
That was the catch, right?
It was in the Silverdome.
But was that the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl they went to after Dwight Clark?
Yeah. After they beat Dallas, right? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and wasn't that they beat Dallas in the last play of the game, right? So, or almost the last play of the game. Yeah, but it was in the Silverdome, and they had a snowstorm, and they had a ice storm like the night before, and nobody could get to the game. We all of us fat sports writers got out of the bus and walked about a mile to get to the stadium. And I'd left on the earliest bus in the morning. There were a lot of guys later who didn't make kickoff because the traffic was just backed up for miles. It was that's what ruined the Northern Super Bowl until Mike Lynn convinced them to come here somehow. And 15 years later, so amazing.
Well, the Vikings will try to get there at some point again. It's been 45 years since they've even been there, Patrick, which is amazing. Vikings fans complain.
There's only about 5 of us now, right? 4 or 5 that, there's Detroit's never been there.
Yep.
And I think Cleveland's never been there, but Cleveland didn't go as the original Browns or this one, but I don't know. There aren't many left that
haven't been since
the Vikings have. All right, let me get started on this Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, then we'll talk a little bit. You and I still haven't talked about the new GM. We got to get to the old GM in a minute, but yes, let's hear your Harbaugh stuff. That's a good one to start with.
Here's what happened. 100%. Even though I have no sources, I'm smart enough to know this is what happened.
Okay.
The agent called up the Vikings and said, "Hey, Jim really admires," what was that guy's name again? Jim really admires your new general manager. He even met him once when he was out there with the 49ers. He'd love to interview for the Vikings job. And they said, "Oh, good. Well, let's talk to Kwesi and we'll see if he wants to do that." And Kwesi says, "Sure, let's interview him." And they said, "Okay, but here's the deal. You contacted us, right? You contacted us. The story is you contacted us." Okay. All right. He hangs up the phone, the agent, he calls Floria and says, "Hey, Pro Football Focus, get this out there quick. Harbaugh and the Vikings are in hot communication." And that's where all this crap came from. There was no chance if he becomes the coach. It'll be the most surprising thing I've seen in I don't know how long in sports, at least the second half of the Chiefs game. But,
at least for the last 24 hours.
24 hours. There's no chance. It was all a setup by the agent. And everybody says to get more money out of Michigan. No, I think he wants to move. But I think he wanted the word to get out there. Supposedly, Stephen Ross, who's a big Michigan guy, and the owner of the Dolphins that's probably where he's going to end up. This works out great for Michigan, in my opinion, though. They get rid of the whack job, and they can either hire Matt Campbell or Fickle from Cincinnati, and they'll be better off. But you cannot go and say what Adolfo Mensa said for 45 minutes at that press conference about a partnership, and then find a guy who Mike Zimmer makes look like Mike Zimmer would be Mr. Collaboration to this guy.
Yeah.
This guy is crazy, a crazy control freak. You're going to get him in here as the partner for our new age 40-year-old guy from Princeton who never put on a pair of shoulder pads, and he and Harbaugh are going to be big buddies. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
But
it was interesting to think about for about 12 seconds, just like
I'm all in on
how
it.
fun it would be. And guy was 44-19-1 with the
Oh,
49ers.
I'm not denying that he can
Yes.
coach. No, I think he can coach like crazy. It took him a while at Michigan because I think he really would have a hard time relating to. He should be coaching to the pros. I gotta think he has a hard time relating with college kids and especially this old transfer age has to drive him nuts. He likes the fact that you can. He likes the fact that you can franchise a guy and keep him, right? He doesn't want some kid coming in and saying, you're not playing me enough. I'm leaving. I'm going to some other school.
Right.
So I think that I'd love to have him as the coach.
You just don't think there's any way? No way.
He'd be great. He'd be great copy.
Yes.
I mean, I think I'd pay admission to have Chris Thomason asking him questions. It'd be fantastic because he'd say anything and Harbaugh's head would blow off. But I say no way. I say no way does it fit the whole lingo that we received. When was that? Thursday, right? Thursday, right? Was the press conference? Yeah, for
yes, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday morning.
Thursday.
Yes,
I get confused here, but you can't be the ultimate new age intentional decision makers and then bring in Jim Harbaugh as your partner and would be all powerful as the coach. So it just doesn't make any sense to me, and it never did.
You wrote your take on the collaborators in this market that we have now. You went back and saw the family of Gerson Rosas. What's the Falvine?
The collaborators. They
collaborators.
I remember that was when we were introduced to. That was way back in 2016. The link, collaboration has now become part of our sports speech, but that was kind of Falvey said it so often that we used to count it when he was saying it in sentences to the point that he doesn't say it anymore. He tries to avoid saying it. But he was that, and then we got PJ right after that with the culture.
Right.
And then we got Gerson so we were very familiar with this, but I think they took it to a new level with me with the new age speak with the obviously I've had a lot of fun with intentional decisions, particularly when I looked up that there actually is a term intentional decisions, which is this big elaborate. It gives you a chance to make an ethical decision or choice or something. I don't know I don't know how an ethical choice is different than a smart choice, but anyway, that's I had a little fun with it. There was a column I wrote that was one of those columns where you write the first three graphs and say, okay, I wonder where the hell this is going.
You got there, those. I enjoyed it. And it's just, it's just such a different kind of hire, such a different direction they've gone. Yes. Obviously it happened, 6 days ago, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but it's, within the context of Harbaugh, it's interesting, and just the thought of that mixing. But it's a Ziggy and Mark Wilf just went they went a 180 away from where they have been. That's the most interesting thing to me, is that they some organizations just kind of say they want a change, and man, these guys dove head first. I don't know if it's going to work, but they actually did make a hire that is completely different.
Yeah, and it's completely different than anything ever been done in the NFL. Yes. Really. It's a guy who's never tackled anybody in his life, So to my knowledge, he never played football, right? I even as an 8-year-old skinny kid, and which is fine. I thought he was okay. This crazed love for him. Love for the hire was rather interesting to me, because I was sitting there saying, well, we have no idea.
We'll see. Yeah.
We'll see. But I would guess it's going to be either Kevin O'Connell, who they're interviewing today, the Rams offensive coordinator, who seems to fit the profile, 36, this Graham guy who's a buddy of his, apparently, that he went and talked to with the Giants now. The Giants accomplished this year scares you a little bit, but supposedly he's an extremely bright guy.
O'Connell's 49ers. O'Connell's 49ers, right?
Oh yeah. No, I thought O'Connell was the Rams, isn't he?
Am I mistaken? Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah, I don't know.
Look him up. Keep going. I'll look it up.
But the Graham guy, who's a Giants defensive coordinator, Yale graduate. So they apparently have a relationship from the past. So, and he made sure to interview him, and they're going to. I wonder if D'Amico Ryans is an interesting character too. So.
You're right. O'Connell's Rams. I was thinking of Mike McDaniel. My bad. It was a different.
Yeah. So I would guess they'll have a coach here and here by Thursday or so, don't you think? One of those young guys, either O'Connell or Graham or maybe D'Amico Ryans would be the guy. I don't see any of the others as being strong candidates. Ryans would be the. Have they already Zoomed O'Connell or haven't they? I don't even know if they did.
I can't remember if they have or not.
I think because these guys were in the title game, they had to wait, right?
They had this original list of 8, yeah.
No, the word last week was that they were trying to not spend a huge amount of money because they owed so much to Zimmer and Spielman and they Poles' agent, Trace Armstrong, didn't like the offer that he was getting. So even before they interviewed him, he went to Chicago and took the job there. Yeah. So that we don't know who their first choice was. This guy became their only choice. So
yes,
and let I'm willing to give him. I'm going to have a few laughs at the expense of the modern lingo, but yes. I'm not anti in any way for him. He seems like a nice enough fella. If he, talks English, I will be fine. Murray County, we never heard of tabula rasa.
Tabula rasa, yeah.
Never heard of that one. So anyway, I saw that in Andrew Kramer's notes on Thursday and said, okay, we'll go somewhere with this here. I don't know where, but we'll go somewhere with this. So, I think that it's impossible, Mike, to have an opinion on these assistants. So, isn't it? I mean, you're throwing a dart. You're throwing a dart at a board. Some of them turn out to be Sean McVay. Some of them don't. Right?
Yes.
Some of them fail. Some of them turn out to be Joe Judge. Got himself fired in 2 years, and he came in and got. And you see a guy like that and you say, how in the hell did he get fired? You know? I do like this Graham guy, though, saying, yeah, I'm out of the Bill Belichick tree. He doesn't want to mention he's been out of the Joe Judge tree the last couple of years. He wants to avoid that connection, the Joe Judge tree.
Fell out of the Joe Judge tree and hit every branch on the way down.
Yes. So anyway. So we'll have more Viking stuff this week. I bet by Thursday, Coach.
I'm going to talk to Ben today for Tuesday's show. Ben Gessling, our beat writer, and I'm sure I'll ask him a little bit more about the coaching search. Let's finish. Let's talk a little bit about Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer and Mike Zimmer's girlfriend. So Spielman was kind of on this radio tour in the last week or so, kind of talking about his tenure with the Vikings, what went wrong, what went right. He was on, I think the quote that we got to zero in on was with Colin Cowherd, where he said, I think the number one thing you're looking for is the head coach has to have a relationship with that quarterback. And can a defensive head coach connect with that quarterback? And I don't know if that was the one that set Mike Zimmer's girlfriend off, but she got on Twitter and she's not particularly active on Twitter. I think I saw she hadn't tweeted for maybe more than a year. Wow. She hops on and says, Rick, how can you build a team when you refuse to talk to the coach and don't show up? You talk a lot to everyone else, just not the ones who mattered when the organization needed unity. You caused separation. Your gossip needs to stop. Let's talk facts. And she also tweeted, what about the GM having a relationship with the organization, not talking to your coach for 3 months? Rick, backpedaling and spin have always been your game. You should be embarrassed by your media blitz of it wasn't my fault. So we haven't heard from Zimmer, but we kind of have, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And, I would think that the young lady in that relationship, we've all admired her from a distance, has a lot of power in that relationship, I would think. And she now, when Heather Fleck went on Twitter, or went on not Twitter, Instagram, I believe, and ripped the Gopher fans after the Bowling Green game.
Yes.
PJ went to her and told her to take it down, and then they got Gopher Hole to take it down so she'd stop getting ripped, right?
Yes.
So that would indicate to me that PJ has the power in that relationship. I think in this relationship, this young lady can probably tweet out anything she wants to, right?
And maybe Zimmer doesn't mind it either. Maybe he's like, yeah.
No, he doesn't, because hey, now, has Spielman talked to anybody local, or has this all been national?
I think it's all been national radio.
Just like when he was a behind-the-scenes leaker of information to his buddies. I think he must be. You think he's lobbying for a TV job or something?
Maybe. Yeah.
After not saying anything here for about 10 years, he should have some words to hang up. But yeah, I always thought he was a snake.
Yeah.
I never trusted. I always thought he was, a back channels type of guy. And he obviously, before mid-season, he knew that this season might not work out. And
right.
Zim was going down the tubes, and I can see him backing off on Zimmer. And it is a pretty good indication of why the Wilfs felt they had to clean house, right? So
yes.
They have these two guys. You know what else is interesting about the whole change?
What?
Ziggy doesn't come out in public anymore. They finally figured out he's a stoop when he tries to talk. So Mark, much smoother. Very good. Mark, 12 years younger, much smoother.
Yes.
He can throw out those. Corporate terms in a much easier fashion than Zygmunt can. So that's a good decision they made too. Don't let Ziggy speak.
Maybe they decided that right around the time they got that picture of them all shoveling the dirt from
the evil grin on his face.
Yes.
When we're paying for his $1.15 billion stadium. Yeah, I've used that shovel picture as my top of my Twitter account every once in a while. I'll switch back to that one. So anyway,
well,
yeah, it is amazing that it was, Mike. It was just, we've said it. It was just one of those years that Zim was giddy, as I said. He was giddy on opening day. 2 days later, Cousins is sent into quarantine, and it was off the rails the rest of the year. You had Chili on the other day.
Yeah.
And by the way, tell the people, Chili's a pretty good guy.
He's a really good guy.
Don't believe that. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. I like him a lot. But he was, that first year he played coach, and that got him off to a bad start. But he's a really good guy. But this was an exact replica of 2010 this season. Anything that could go wrong, except no roof collapse. But damn near it might as well have. So
yes,
anyway.
I agree. Well,
I should mention our plucky Gophers. They couldn't have been more plucky again yesterday.
They almost did it. I know. Almost beat the Badgers.
The pluck doesn't work in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's too good.
The women beat the Badgers. The Gopher women beat the Badgers. I don't think Lindsay's ever lost to them. She's lost to plenty of other teams, but they've not lost to the Badgers. We didn't get to Wolves. Didn't really get to Wild. But you know what? Football season's only so long. We'll get to a lot of those teams once we get to February. But plucky Gophers, you're right. They're getting a lot of they're getting a lot of moral victories this year, which
Yeah, but it could end up being about 4-16. So that's sometimes talent wins. And as far as Lindsay goes, she's not going to win many this year. She gets her recruit next year, and if things don't get better, she doesn't have. She got another year, I'd say. So
yep.
Anyway. I watched some of that game during the breaks yesterday.
Neither team was shooting very well. That's for sure.
They weren't. There was those poor rims, man. They're going to have to be remodeled. But anyway, that's the way. But shock of the weekend, Pat Mahomes, second half. I don't know where
Terrible.
that came from.
Yeah, he looked like an amateur out there, and that was not what I would have expected. But, well, we'll see what happens in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Just having a hard time wrapping my head around Rams, Bengals, but we'll get there. We'll get there. It'll be all right.
I think we're all going to be rooting for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, he's likable. He's likable. He's got, like we talked about before the show started, he's got a little bit of the makings of early Tom Brady to him. I don't want to put that on somebody because that's a lot to put on somebody, but he just reminds me a little bit of him, especially just watching him play. Nothing phases him.
Tom and the wife don't like the fact that ESPN has scooped the fact that he's retiring.
Yes.
They try to act like it's still a mystery. They wanted to roll it out. They wanted to roll it out sometime, maybe next Sunday or something. And but Schefter's dug in on this one, so they must know that he's quitting. So
Yep. All righty, sir. Good stuff. We'll see you again next week.
All right, Mike. See you. Bye.